Quick start. It's a Too Much Dip podcast. My name is Dave. I'm hosting. Dave, why you Russian? What's going on? I'm not Russian. Italian American. No, I'm KJ's got a hard out, the hardest of outs. Work and duty calling. Joining us from Wisconsin, it is KJ. Hi, KJ.
Assad, dude. Or is that the other guy in Russia?
No, Assad fled.
There you go. There you go.
Geopolitics.
Look at us.
Producing Randy Trimbacki.
Hey, Dave, this one is for you. Happy Zevia to you.
Thank you. We got a new treat in the office. Thanks to me, it's a Zevia 0-calorie soda. And I accidentally bought the man cans.
Tall boys.
So they're the big dogs. Hey, here's to you and yours. To you and yours, KJ. And yeah, we're all drinking them. And the other person in here is not Dylan, who's probably packing a bag to go out around Amsterdam way. It's Brett Merriman.
What's going on, Dave? Thanks for having me. KJ, thank you for having me. Randy, thank you for having me. Excited to talk all things Sprats today.
What about Mangione?
Luigi, right? He appears to have been captured, Dave.
Oh, they got him?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed all of it. I knew they
yeah.
identified him. I didn't know he'd been captured.
Oh yeah, no, that's the news.
Dead or alive?
Very much alive. Appears to be at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Hungry.
Not a big healthcare guy.
Let's just start the show later. I kind of want to go read into this.
Oh, there's rabbit holes all over the place.
Okay. Well, hell. All right. Did you guys have good weekends? I don't know.
We certainly did for KJ's sake. Pony up, KJ.
You can say it was a roller coaster of emotions. Glad to be here. I love to see the representation there in Stu amongst just a harem of UT fans. Just happy to see it.
Look, this ponies, this SMU rowback. It's a rowback. Go to rowback.com, use code WASH20. Load that card up, but throw this in there if you want to support the ponies. Get you 20% off your first order. So load it up. Get you a hat hoss, get you a quarter zip, get you something. Shorts, pants. Everything's dope. Workout shirts. I worked out in one earlier.
The joggers have been getting a workout for me.
You're a big joggers guy.
Big joggers guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Rowback joggers are pound for pound, not even pound for the pound, just any championship belt they're taking.
Yep.
In the jogger category.
They're the best. They're the best. Rowback.com. Use code WASHED20. Let's just jump right into it. Do we want to just do SEC since, as Tessator said, it's the heavyweights, man. We got to get to the heavyweights. So, we got to start there, right? Or do you save that?
I think we can at least give a brief moment to Conference Championship Saturday. Started with The Undertaker and WWE's finest, the Big 12 Championship, during which my late bloomer for Red Ass of the Year candidate, Kenny Dillingham, absolutely boo-fooed the Cyclones from Iowa State. I don't have a ton to say, but it was just ugly.
It was ugly from the get because Twitter likes to point out when people like to shit on other conferences, it's usually, for one reason or another. But if you don't have a good showing from your fan bases in your conference championship game, it's not a good look. And this game was at AT&T Stadium, which, as we've learned, seats like 100,000 people if they really want to. There was not, I would say it was about 25% full, maybe 40%.
For Arizona State's sake, I hope they are supported much more fervently in the whatever bowl they're playing in the quarterfinal. Or I guess that'll be the
playoff.
Whatever the playoff game is, whatever round they've been buyed into.
Yeah, you're right.
They nabbed the 4 seed, which a conversation on its own. I think the consensus is pretty established at this point that auto buys are a system that needs to go away immediately. Happy to have auto bids remain. I think that's kind of the the consensus that we've reached, right, Dave?
I agree with that. Arizona State, I've got a little bit more on them than I probably should, just because Texas State played them very early in the season. So I watched them a couple times early, and like the thing that everybody knows about them is they've got a white guy, and he's a running back, and he's got a funny last name, and he's a fucking hoss. He's not just a bruiser. Like, he's got really good feet, and he's quick. And Kenny Dillingham's wife really likes him.
Appears to have a lot of charisma, if you will.
Yes,
with Kenny Dillingham's wife.
Scataboo, the Scat Man.
She's no Mrs. Mullen. I definitely have to say I was watching it anticipating like Dan Mullen's wife, former Florida coach, with her warming embrace of her players, which coach's wife is a unique role. Oftentimes you've got to host, 30 to 50 young hogs running through your house for dinner or for random events.
It's good.
And it's always managed a number of ways. You hear about Saban's wife all the time. Mac Brown would always reference his wife. Like,
Sally.
It's a huge part of that dynamic. As like these coaches aren't fully functioning human beings, both from an availability and like a common sense standpoint. So it is always interesting to hear about that dynamic.
Yeah, this was one game where I thought we were going to get a sneaky banger because I thought they're very evenly matched, and this was just an absolute
blowout is what we got.
Okay.
Trademark that. Did you already said, Randy?
Or
No.
Scataboofo. You can really go any way.
Scatta
Come on.
blowout.
Oh, very good. It's Rhea time.
Exactly.
okay.
If Randy chimes in really good, we gotta reevaluate.
I think
The one thing I do want to add about Dillingham really quick is I wasn't aware of the backstory, the fact, he's like Randy's age, maybe. I don't even know how old Randy is. Maybe
Brett is the same age as me.
Randy and I are both
Dillingham-
30 years old. I believe Dillingham is a
34.
smidge.
I'm sorry. Okay. He's 34.
Which
Either
is
way.
that's more Will's age.
No, it is not.
Will's 36.
Will's 37.
Oh, either way, it's still closer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Dillingham's 34, right?
Yeah.
Or am I high? Okay. 34. And he's living in like his essentially like childhood neighborhood down the street from his sister's house, like grew up really close to Arizona State. Like, I knew he came from being a coordinator at Oregon and had some stops prior to this, but I just did not realize his ties to Arizona State were so strong. So that part, like, that does a little bit to alleviate my like, hey, this guy's just a red ass making a name for himself at Arizona State. Like, I can see the passion, and I'll tip the cap to.
I totally agree. I believe that his wife, his aforementioned wife, has some ties as well. Mm-hmm. So if he wants to build a dynastic Arizona State, go right ahead. That would be awesome. I'm a Sun Devil guy ever since I lived in Arizona growing up. I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for the Sun Devils. That old helmet with the old yellow helmet. You guys all looked at me like that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's not
since
like
when?
Whoa,
I'm
when
not
did you live in Arizona?
When I was like 3, 4, 5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like David dropping some Munich details on us. Like, come on.
Oh, Munchen, huh?
I claim Illinois from time to time, but like I bailed out when I was 2. So
Guten Tag.
Yeah, no, the first helmet I ever had in my childhood bedroom was this Arizona Sun Devil, the old yellow, like, I guess Sun Devil with the fork.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So I've always been like, oh, how's Arizona State doing? So I'm happy for them. That being said, Iowa State, what an unbelievable non-effort for the Fighting Matt Campbells.
This show doesn't have a good track record with Matt Campbell. And most of it is just rooted in like our teams, mainly Mike Baylor, back and forth, losing to them, beating to them, and just dealing with Matt Campbell on the sideline. He's a very good coach. Boy, I did not expect that. Was there some give up there? Like, what's going on?
a lot of give up, and maybe a little bit of. It made sense as the day went on because I think people like took it as, oh my gosh, they dominated, which Arizona State definitely did. But there was a point where they could have won that game by 2 or 3 scores comfortably and played out a very casual game. But they would not have had that sentiment that lasted through the next day of like, Arizona State, without question, was the most dominant performance we saw all weekend, when it was true, but I think it was as a result of like a little bit of give up and a little bit of, hey, we're going to keep the gas pedal down at like 110.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they went way down yonder on the Scatabucci.
Never knew how much that muddy water
We got to
meant
move
to.
on. We said we got
Kenny
nothing on
Dillingham.
this game, and here we are like 10 minutes deep on Sun D's.
We got a skedaddle.
KJ sent me a text, was like, hey, would anybody even care about this Scattaboo guy if he didn't have a funny name and he wasn't like a white guy running back? And I was like, I don't know, dude.
I had that same thought sitting at Lavacta Street on Saturday. Yeah, what's the story here?
KJ, I sent that text to KJ. The last name helps, right? If his last name was like Johansson.
Or just Jones.
Jones, yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. He does not have the same juice as Scatabo.
He's good. He's
The
very
name-
good.
the
Janty
name
makes that
helps.
run every time. Go ahead. Sorry, KJ.
The name helps. Coming from like Sacramento State and being like a transfer running back, but not the type that everyone's like looking for. Like, oh, this guy was buried on a roster somewhere and, FBS level. Like, he's made the most of it. He's made more of an impact at Arizona, like the most impact at Arizona State since like Joe Francis. How about that?
Okay. That's a
a pull
Girls
right
Gone
there.
Wild poll.
That's a pull right there.
It's a Girls Gone Wild poll. Wow. Wow. Weird, wild stuff.
Yeah, that's a running back. The running back.
You're in charge of running back.
I don't even think I have access, but okay.
Figure it
Let's
out.
do the SEC.
Now for the heavyweights.
Hold on. Let's give it just but quick. Tulane got stomped. They did not want to be there, and UNLV Barry Odom, he was checked out. See you later. Go hang out with your Boilermakers and Randy at Purdue. Boise State, welcome to the playoff.
Got a new coach.
Thank you.
That's
Thanks,
the
Randy.
one. All right, KJ, let's talk to SEC.
Yeah. Only thing real quick on Boise State is like it emphasizes the benefit of the home conference championship game, which maybe we'll see some of that as we get into the playoffs. We'll cover that another time, but like there was a lot of advantage of being at Boise State. You don't get a field rush after a conference championship game, and I don't think the logistics were planned out expecting it because they couldn't get to like the makeshift stage on the field because it was too full. It was a whole clusterfuck after that Boise game.
Do you remember real quick, just a double tangent? Weren't there like stories upon stories of flocks of birds nosediving into the Boise State stadium because of the blue turf? Those have disappeared.
The birds?
This,
I told
and
the
the
story,
stories.
legitimately told these stories to my kids this weekend as they were like, oh, the field is blue.
Mhm.
Now my 2-year-old will say it every time she sees a different football field that is not blue. She notes it. I believe it. I don't know if it just went away, but I've always believed it.
I'm hoping instead of just accounting for hundreds of bird deaths a year, I'm hoping that they've figured out a solution here. I don't know. They've just mysteriously disappeared, much like a flock of seagulls. The band
There we
in
go.
the animal.
So wait, Boise's going to host a game.
Correct.
Well, they won't host a game.
They have the bye.
Oh,
correct.
they'll be home
Okay.
in like not the Fiesta Bowl, but like the Sugar. It's Peach for Arizona State, Fiesta for Oregon, Rose for Oregon, Fiesta for Boise, and then Georgia has whatever's left, Sugar.
That'll be the Sugar Bowl. Yep.
Okay. I was going to say, I was thinking about the optics of a Boise State hosting a playoff game at some point with the blue field. It would really annoy me as the
No,
viewer.
could happen soon. SEC, the rematch. I feel like y'all were more dialed into this than I was, as I was fully like trying to mentally protect my emotions prior to kickoff for the ACC game.
Okay. So
Only
you were
kind of checking in, being observant of it, but I was not watching it intently.
Some background visuals.
First half dominated by Texas, yards wise. Time of possession, I believe, reflects that as well. Score did not.
Mhm.
And it was pretty much immediately clear that Texas was not going to be able to run the ball with the success they had against lesser opponents recently, mainly Kentucky. I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Because Quinn was fine, was okay. His first pick would love a little help from your receiver. Would love a little help there. He's not a particularly mobile quarterback, and he's like hampered with the ankle. And you have your O-line, for whatever reason, does not stand up to Georgia's D-line, probably because Georgia's got a really good D-line. But like, it's 2 games now that they've been just absolutely dominated.
Correct.
A good D-line, like, against them, but not against Georgia Tech, is a weird thing. Like, strangely, this has been a down-ish year for their D-line linebackers from a rush defense standpoint, getting off the field on third down. But against Texas, they had none of those problems, which is just strange.
Which just feels like it's like the get-up factor, right? The Georgia Tech hour is going to walk in there and kind of sleepwalk our way to a win. Obviously, that didn't happen. With you guys, I haven't tuned in much to this specific show. The vibe I get with Texas is I'm not and have not been all season overly impressed with that team. Outside of the defense has been dominant. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about this. The quality of opponent means something. A down Michigan, a Florida without Lagway, excuse me. A Kentucky team that frankly beat Ole Miss, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. But like, the Texas test was against A&M. Well, Georgia, obviously they failed at home. The A&M test, they passed, but 17-7 I don't think is anything but a crowning of their defense. I'm nervous about Texas. If I am a Texas fan.
Yeah, you should be. And you want to give Dylan's thoughts? We gave Dylan the option to leave some thoughts, and we decided to. He too has a waning confidence in the Texas offense and Quinn.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's been our take. We were looking at it objectively I was just like, okay, look, they're running the ball better. This is the Texas offense. If they can run the ball, free up Quinn, play action, they'll be at their best. They just haven't had a game where they looked in sync, and their defense is championship level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm worried too, and I think Clemson's going to be a better test than I think a lot of people think. Even though on paper, like, their path to the championship looks favorable, I feel like Clemson, with their pedigree and with their coach, like, that's not going to be a cakewalk.
Along with, frankly, missing field goals. Like, if you have to go beat Clemson 31-28, I don't. If they want to let Klubnik go wild and Quinn is anywhere near healthy, his arm looks shot. I don't know what that deal is. He's shot putting the ball. It's very weird.
They've benefited, Texas, that is, they've benefited from how the season kind of broke down. Like, Quinn got hurt, 3 games into the season or so. It's roughly thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then they had the Georgia game again. My timeline, I don't have the schedule in front of me. They had the Georgia game. They had the injury. But there was a chunk of their season that I think people were ready to excuse away some of the offensive ineptitude because we had Arch in there and he was young, new, blah, blah, blah. And then Quinn's back, a little bit hampered, SEC adjustments. And I think there's enough information just to say it's a good offense with a lot of great weapons that cannot close the door in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
They've had too many games where they move the ball down the field. They find drives that work. They have success popping big plays, not really beating themselves in too many ways, but then they can't close the door in the red zone.
And that's where
I think they'll like, if they lose between now and the finals or whatever, it's going to be a bad balance of possessions, kind of like this Georgia game was. Not because they got dominated, not because Georgia did something significant. maybe because Texas's defense couldn't stop backup quarterback here, but like it just so happened to be the timing of possessions did not favor Texas because they gave up all their opportunities, not scoring touchdowns.
It would be like a score, stop, score can never catch up to that 10 point or 9, whatever that 9 points ends up being.
Correct.
And they lose by 2 scores, but it's actually a 9-point loss kind of thing. I feel like Sark can scheme open people between the 20s, and then talent and scheme is less important than one-on-one matchups or your trench guys, and that's where they've been ineffective. And then you miss a 43-yard field goal 1 or 2 times more coming up here, and then you're in trouble because their side of the bracket is much more difficult.
I think we'd all agree that like if Texas won the championship, like none of us would look back and be like they weren't the team to do it, like they weren't deserving or anything. Like I feel like they've got a very complete roster, if not the most complete roster from a talent standpoint. Maybe not from like a on the field productivity standpoint. Like Oregon slightly ahead because Gabriel's still able to be mobile in the red zone. But I think that Texas has just as much of a shot of any of the top 4 right now.
There's no doubt. Texas it's going to be for them, in my opinion. You get a Clemson team that is fiery, has a second chance, well, third chance, really, fourth chance if you want to go there. And you get the Cade Klubnik homecoming. It's going to be an interesting game. I'm really looking forward to it. But again, Texas is like a 10, 11-point favorite. And then you
the biggest favorite of first round.
And you catch a break with Arizona State, obviously. So your season or your playoff starts, knock on wood, in the semifinals against Oregon, Tennessee, or Ohio State. And let's spot the ball. Here we go. That's how the bracket breaks down. And
that side, because they go to. That's the one thing that sucks. They clarified yesterday is that again, like you just said, the bracket's broken up that way.
Yeah,
that there's no chance for SMU Texas to meet in the Cotton Bowl.
Unfortunately, no.
Which in the past, like again, I'm not saying SMU will get there. Certainly have a path, but in the past, when you're picking bowl games, they would have had the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, the Cotton Bowl would much rather take SMU Texas versus maybe not over SMU or like Texas Oregon. Who knows if they would care? But like I think the Cotton Bowl certainly would have some big voices in the room with some influence vouching for SMU for that game. Let's do Big Ten really quick because that was
I got some more on this
something
game.
Go ahead.
10 Texas pass plays went for at least 15 yards. So it feels like they get chunk plays. Mm-hmm. And to speak to your point, KJ, like then you get down there and maybe what they did against A&M, they had the arch package, which was successful at certain times. They didn't roll arch package. I got to stop calling it arch package, but that's what it is. They didn't roll arch out there until OT.
Like the first quarter
or till the fourth quarter.
The between the legs snap that we used to run at Saratoga Springs High School. I saw that play. I went nuts because I was like, we put that in.
You guys are the first ones to ever do it?
That was you guys.
It was us. Sark watched our 2011 high school film.
Wow.
I thought they rolled him out way too late. And then I did have a semi-viral tweet. It wasn't that viral. Dylan did not realize because he was watching the game at a sports bar that on that interception, the Gunnar Stockton, the backup, the horrible interception, which is what, a backup's going to do that. That's safety. I believe it was the safety. That's a pick six if your cornerback just steps in the way of the tight end or receiver, whoever that was. Like that ended up. The guy had so much green it was a free reign for him to just go down the field and show everybody at the next level how fast he is. It was
Did
insane.
Delp make the tackle? Was it 4?
I think so.
Don't.
Him, Oregon, and then if RJ Maryland was not injured, are all absolute dudes.
Yeah.
Like Oregon's receiver or tight end Ferguson, like they are all just absolute dudes.
That's ball game because it's very, in my opinion, very unlikely that Gunnar Stockton's going to go lead the dogs down the field for a touchdown with little time. Very unlikely. Mm-hmm. So that was insane. And I was watching it and I was just like, holy shit. How does that not happen? And what did Auburn miss? He missed 2. He was 2 for. He's like terrible over 39 yards. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Clemson. I told Dylan this. I'm worried about Clemson, and I am going to root for Texas over Clemson. I like Klubnik, and you alluded to he's 1-0 against Quinn Ewers in high school.
Ooh.
That's a really good Westlake team. I'm just fucking around. I think Dylan's tired of that storyline.
For the sake of the Texas Clemson game, which again we'll have time, I think, to address it before then. If Phil Maffa is healthy, Clemson is a much better team. Their starting running back, like, essentially played without a shoulder. And having seen him early in the season, like, the guy's an absolute unit. He can run the ball. He is imposing. But he was going down against defenders that were half his size in the SMU game, and it was to SMU's benefit because then the backup. Anyway, we'll get there. But if he's healthy by the Texas game, it'll be competitive. Clemson has some talent at wide receiver, but it's more about how bad SMU's corners are. But Clemson's D-line is worth everything you'd expect out of a Clemson D-line. They're good. Their linebackers experience. It'll be a good game. 11 points, very, very likely.
I think you're right. I just think the biggest mismatch on the field is that Texas D-line versus Clemson O-line right now. And that could turn Maffa, especially if he's not 100%, into really nothing he can do if he's just getting smothered.
And will Kelvin Banks be back? I feel like that's kind of got lost.
What was he, game time decision on
Did you
Saturday?
see that, Kev?
Kelvin Banks.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, he was game time.
Banks.
They could have used him because they got my guy Cam Williams, former Panther great. Doesn't stand up very well against these guys. You want to talk Big Ten or you want to talk SMU? Because you got to get out of here, KJ.
Yeah, you know what? If I want to give the game my proper attention, like, I can't really tell you much about the Big Ten game. They were being played at the same time. I'm sure somebody will release like the TV ratings and be like, look, nobody gives a shit about these two teams. Sure, I don't care. It was the only conference title game played against another. Don't care. Similar to the Duke game, I think I mentioned, I've never gone through a transcendent, like, roller coaster of emotions like I felt at the end of 6 turnovers for 0 points, and then winning in overtime after blocking a field goal to get to overtime. That made me say things to the TV I'd never said out loud before. Watching the ACC title game was very, very frustrating because I made the intentional decision not to go completely dark. I don't know that I was going to go like Dylan level of being at Lavaca Street for a conference championship game. Like, we all need to appreciate Dylan's growth as a fan and as an observer of the sport, because that is miles away from where Dylan was years ago.
Sports
when
book.
the stakes were much lower.
Sports book.
Yeah, sports book.
Or sports book. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said
I was
bar.
I went sports bar.
You were at Lavaca. I'm sorry. But still, miles away from the Dylan who we knew you've got to have a side text during games. Like, kudos to him. So I was like, okay, fuck it. I'll be online. And then things just started going sideways. Kevin Jennings, quarterback, fumbles on the first drive, like second play. I won't say it's fluky because he's had some ball security issues, but fumbles are fluky to a certain degree. The thing that absolutely shook my confidence was that, okay, great, you give them the ball on like the plus 25, like on SMU's 25. Of course, they're going to score. It was a broken play that they scored on. So, great. 2 plays that make us look like we shouldn't have got off the bus. Follow that up with another drive where then you punt, not the end of the world, but then a 15-yard penalty because a player's helmet came off and he continued to like participate in the play. Continued to run down the field. I understand why it's a penalty, but it was a very, very devastating penalty because then it put Clemson on like the 35 and they scored again. Back and forth again, and we punt again, and we have like a late hit that's just embarrassing from one of our wide receivers, Jordan Hudson, who the reason we lost to BYU is because we missed a field goal and because on like the 6-yard line, he demanded that our sophomore running back like pitch him the ball as he was being tackled, and the ball fell to the ground. BYU recovered. And all we need to do is like kick a field goal and we would have won that game. Gave it to BYU and they won. So like Jordan Hudson is a gift and a curse, and he was here too. So you go down 21-0, and it's like, holy shit, are we about to be like the biggest laughing stock? And this would have like years long ramifications, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Almost as bad as that one time.
I'm listening.
I just said it was almost as bad as that one time that was a years long.
Oh, exactly. Yes, as the death penalty.
Yes, they're dead, literally
I was thinking,
dead.
like, which embarrassing loss? Like, I'm like, I've seen quite a few 2-win seasons. But like in my head, I'm like, shit, this is like worse than TCU. That's a natty against Georgia. Like, this should not be happening. And I won't be like, I stood there and said, I believe, and like picking this apart, but I did feel like it's way too early. It's like fucking 10 minutes on the clock in the first, and you're down 21-0. Like, that's too much time. And SMU woke up and they put some points on the board. Kevin Jennings scores, and they come back. By the end of the game, I was probably standing as close to my TV as I am to like my computer screen right now. Like holding a water bottle in hand, spilling it everywhere because I'm just like clenching it, not giving a shit what's going on. And they put the ball in the end zone at the end, and I'm like, goddamn right. And they give up a kick return.
Yeah.
Were you, KJ?
And then they had a 56-yard field goal. And I'm like, you know what? I'd passed the point of like accepting the loss to a certain degree. And I just switched back to like, fuck this, we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ended. But I was okay with it at that point. I was honest, like, we didn't lose this on that field goal. We lost it in those 21 points because that was not a close game after those 10 minutes.
Did you go in to this game thinking that a loss and we're in, or where was your mindset bracket wise before kickoff? And did you care? Was this more about the ACC, like, let's win it?
Oh, I definitely cared for
Right.
sure. I didn't think the thought that like they could opt out was ever a real option.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think that was going to be a thing whatsoever. I, without hesitation, will argue for and beyond, like, objectively will stand on they should have been in regardless of outcomes, short of like a 50-point loss.
That's where I was
Like,
at with
essentially,
you. Yeah.
like, had that game continued on and it been like 50 points, like, we shouldn't have even be asking to be in
Mm-hmm.
at that point, you know? But had it gone like a normal game or how it did, like, there was not a person on this earth, like now in any other situation, where I wouldn't have been like, you're out of your fucking mind, especially if you're Alabama having this conversation with me, like, for a dozen reasons. And like, the two things I'll say on that argument really quick, I know I'm going long on this, but I just want to throw all this out here. As we get to like the time between when the announcement's made and everything between, my position and my biggest annoyance is that almost like Russian bot level asshats and idiots that support SEC. And, you know, I'm well aware of the fact that I've consistently hate on SEC. I get it. That's been consistent. My one consistent complaint as well, not just about SEC, from week 0, David's heard it. I've apologized for saying it too much, is I bitch about the rankings. Even when it's like minor, like week 6, I think I complained that like Texas shouldn't have been 4 instead of 2. And like that stuff, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter, whatever, when, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, all of this conversation focused on SMU because of how all that bullshit happened throughout the season of like lack of movement in the rankings. Nick Saban hops on TV and he says, well, if people think that Bama deserved to be in because of these reasons, they should have been ranked higher and SMU should have been playing, to which I call bullshit. Not because of Bama and SMU, but that same argument could have been said about Penn State, could have been said about any of the teams that were like comfortably assumed to be in, but for some reason it was SMU only because they were in that 8th seed. And they shouldn't have been, because they beat teams while they were ranked throughout the season. You don't like start dropping people based on your opponent's losses later in the season. Like if you beat the number 10 team or the number 2 team, that sticks. It stuck for Boise State when they lost to Oregon and Oregon like continued winning. If Oregon would have dropped a couple games, do you think Boise would have started dropping? No. Like, so, but that's essentially what happened to the value of SMU's arguments. Like, oh, Louisville's not a ranked team. Like, well, they fucking were. It's just wild.
And you're not wrong. There just has to be a week 6 argument, right? Because Michigan was 10th or something like that, or Florida State was started the season 10th. I think you have to preseason rankings and the first 5 weeks worth of rankings are such bullshit, in my opinion, because you can't build. You almost can't build resumes off that until week 6 or 7, because these teams are not what they thought they were, especially when the first 3 weeks are spent, beating up on Northwestern Directional State. And so you just don't know. And that's what I know that the BCS or the CFP tries to do, not releasing rankings until
week 8, I think.
8. But then Ward Manuel comes out and says, well, the AP does their job and we guess we're onto something. It's like, no, dude. I agree. Like they try to say that they don't rank until this point, but we all know it's on there. It's for betting odds. Like it's for everyone's observation every single week since before the preseason. It's why we valued Texas's strength so much. Not saying that I have already said I think they're a good team, but a lot of that came from they went into Michigan and they got that dominant win without any questions. That Georgia played Clemson and dominated them without any questions. Let's flip the Georgia and the Clemson games, or Georgia Tech and the Clemson games for Georgia. And let's say they struggled against Georgia Tech right out of the gate, kind of like SMU struggled out of the gate with Nevada. Do people ride as high on Georgia like throughout the season? Probably after they beat Texas, I guess. Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't think that conversation would have been the same.
No doubt.
And similar to like Clemson, I don't think people would be shitting on what SMU just did if Clemson took that L in week 12 as opposed to week 1. Because even we were kind of forgetting about and we're out on what Clemson did after that first ass whooping when you got 5 months to prepare for one game. Like it's stupid. There's no good answer. But what I refuse to accept is idiots who are like, oh, there's no top 25 current ranked teams. And then you look at it, Illinois is ranked for some stupid reason at 21.
Dude, that feels like a bone
it's
to
Penn
Penn
State's
State.
ranked.
Oh my God.
Missouri is like still ranked for some reason. And like you've got all these random teams hanging around like 18 to 25 and you're like, okay, why? And I'm not saying conspiracy theory, but like then at 26 or 27, it's like A&M, depending on the poll, was like just outside of it. Duke, Louisville, like all these other teams who SMU has played are now not ranked wins. And it doesn't fucking matter that they're 9-3 or that they've played like significant games and won them. So you can't have it both ways. You can't call it like you've played nobody and we're only going to show like the ones with numbers next to them, not like the number in their win-loss column. So I just hated that it was only SMU having to like carry the weight of that argument. Penn State got to skate on it. Texas with a loss got to skate on it. Of course, the other teams that weren't playing were never part of the discussion.
Indiana, fucking Notre Dame gets to skate on it too. Like they all do. And it's
so it being focused on SMU and like SMU being the one to keep Alabama out, really, I think is what pissed me off, because then it made everybody focus on one team instead of at some point you're punishing a team for their opponent's losses and not for that team's losses. And that's just stupid logic.
And that's what this CFP universe has created for itself. And it's one more year after this, and then I think it's blown up into 14, 16. It's going to
But who's the victim here? Like, you've got 3 SEC teams. One who never had to like have a peep said all weekend.
That's what people get hung up on.
Are we up in arms that they deserve that they were like birthrighted 4 to 5? Like, that's just the wild thing.
Oh, great.
And that's not even picking on Ole Miss or South Carolina. Bama's been the loudest voice, and obviously it's weird because Saban's around, but like, what more do you want?
It's Sankey. That's all a Sankey thing.
Oh yeah, he's doing his job. I don't mind it. But like,
politicking for his conference.
Just,
yeah,
Maybe just play a
It's
competitive game
silly.
against Oklahoma.
That's what it all comes right. It all comes down to. I get. So my question, I know KJ has to bounce here. My question to Dave is going to be, when they say they want the 12 best teams, how do you define best? What does best mean? Is it the best resume? Is it the most deserving? Is it a power ranking? Because they all mean different things. And the committee's guidelines for how they rank people keep saying set a precedent for why this team's in, why this team's out, why this team's in, why this team's out. The precedent is the committee changes every year. Their arguments change every week. There's no precedent setting. They can say one thing, they can have one thing happen, and then immediately backtrack the next year, and because they feel like it, because it's a subjective thing, change it.
Yeah, it's not that different than like I don't know, a Supreme Court who wants to get to a certain conclusion, and they're like, okay, well, we got to find a workaround here on this precedent, right?
We can just make a new precedent.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
No, I think it's actually more intriguing. I think it's probably more intriguing across the board for people that a team like SMU got in than like Alabama. I don't know. I just can't. I was cracking up watching the committee as they were watching that game in that room, and I was just like, well, first of all, like the obvious thing is like, boy, this is just a fucking boring ass scene. This is terrible. But also like
fix the fucking AV situation in here. Like the TV setup was sad.
it was terrible, and I'm like, shouldn't they all be kind of like watching on their own personal like? I don't know.
Oh, it was groupthink personified.
Exactly.
It's like one opinion is going to get spread around and snuff out any other dissenting argument. It's
You want them in
crazy.
like Love
With
is
no-
Blind pods?
A voting booth of sorts.
No, there was no notepads. There were no laptops. It's just
Perrier water.
yeah.
I was
Ward
I did
Manuel's-
spot one Perrier. I zoomed in on that too.
Ward Manuel's sitting there taking a nap. Like what are we doing?
No,
sir?
their minds are made. Like this may have been said. Like if SMU gets their doors blown off, like it looked like they were going to, I'm pretty sure they're not in, right?
Were there? I would agree with you.
Probably
and KJ.
not.
Probably not. But then again,
Probably not. But like, it would have had to been clear. Like why? Because they were down 21 off a lot of self-inflicted mistakes that weren't reflective of how the year went. Like double the number of drops, fumbles. So like, had it been an injury or like they lined up with the same guys the whole game and they still just didn't score, couldn't move the ball, like maybe, but it would have had to been big.
I wouldn't be mad at someone whose like explanation was like, if you can't show up and play your best in a conference championship game where you know you're on like the fringe, you're on the bubble, then like why what are you gonna do if you do get it? You know what I mean? Like that argument wouldn't, I may not agree with it, but it wouldn't like make me mad.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be
What do you
like
think,
Baylor TCU all over again from 2014 or whatever year that was.
yeah. When
Dumb proposal would then be like, Saban brought up the SMU should have been a playing game. Like my counter might be, then why wouldn't you take the Ohio States, Tennessees, Indianas, the people not in the conference title game that are still like you're projecting to be in, and force them to play a 13th game?
totally agree.
So
KJ.
they all have a play, like they all have that extra wear and tear. They all have that extra data point, and then you re-rack. And now that turns it into 15 in, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. And only the conference titles are like eligible for the, I don't care. But like, if that's how it's going to be, then figure it out. Last quick thing, and actually I'll save it for next time. I'm going to the game. Once it was announced, like the logistics between like deciding like where the game is, figuring all that out, like buying tickets, I think Arizona State and that whole scene deserves some grace, because remember, that's the one conference title game where like it was least defined who's going to be there and furthest from both teams playing. So like SMU getting to Penn State, I'll say this a million times from now until I go, Penn State's a fucking shithole to get to. I hope it's beautiful. But everything I've seen is going to say it's absolutely hideous. I'm going to talk shit for 2 weeks. I won't go there. I think we all know where I'm talking about. But I will likely come back with some strong opinions about the beauty that isn't central Pennsylvania.
Oh.
With that, I'm going to depart, but till next week.
Don't get Monjonade. Bye-bye.
See you, KJ.
Onies.
So let me ask you, Dave.
Hey, what's my solution?
No, not
No.
your solution, but what when you say, or when the committee says we want the 12 best teams, What do you how do you interpret that?
Fuck, man, put me on the spot. Can I apply it to this year just
Sure.
for a reference?
Sure.
So like obviously like I wanted SMU in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So KJ already said this, but I looked at the teams that they had beaten that weren't necessarily ranked at this time, like the Duke. Duke's a good football team, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said Louisville. There's teams that are like good teams, right? That SMU's beat, and just because at this point they are just outside, I feel like that top 25 thing is like so rigid and bright line for people.
It shouldn't.
It's
be.
like, okay, what if it was top 30?
Right. It changes everything. A&M
Yeah.
all of a sudden is now in. Missouri still probably hangs around.
Right.
Duke is right there. So everybody now, these graphics that ESPN loves to put up, they change immensely.
Yeah. People don't even think about those teams. Like the common person, and I've been guilty of this, still am. Like you forget that there's other teams out there that maybe had something a change at quarterback, which SMU did, at the beginning of the year. But you're like, oh yeah, there's still good teams that just because they're not in the top 25. So I think that needs to be collectively factored in more. I understand it's a money thing, and brand name is going to ultimately be a factor. I hate it, but it's better for college football if you get a school like SMU. I think everybody would agree, like that's an up and coming school, especially with NIL and money. Like that can become a brand name,
right? That can become borderline blue blood.
Yeah,
blue. I sound like Scooby Doo. Blue blood.
Yeah,
because of the resources they have available to them.
Sure. So I think it's ultimately better for college football to get those teams in there. It's interesting. Like, is this going to be a year one? I know they're going to change it, but like year one, you get the SMUs in there, and let's say they get their doors blown by Penn State, and it's like, oh, we'll see. This is what happens.
Yeah.
Should have been Alabama. They would have been a much better competitor. And like, I like the fact that they looked at a team like Alabama who like everything is saying like they want this team in there. They've got Nick Saban, like one of the biggest voice in college football, out there lobbying for them. And like, it's like, yeah, dude, you went to a 6-win OU team who had its doors blown off by multiple teams, couldn't score, and you scored like 3 points.
3 points. They got fucking smoked. And you know who didn't lose to Oklahoma by 3 points? Ole Miss.
There you go. That's true. So, and also like real quick, you look at their best wins versus their losses.
Mm-hmm.
I actually give losses and wins like I look at them pretty similarly. Like I'm going to focus on like if Team X had beat the number 2 ranked team, but also had lost to like
Kentucky,
or not even Kentucky, like McNeese, no offense, Texas State,
Northern Illinois, perhaps.
Like what happened there? I'm going to look at both of those things as well.
I wonder. So that's a great point because I've been doing the same thing in this, wallowing in and how could Ole Miss make it, or how can South Carolina make it, and why is Notre Dame being sort of absolved for the worst loss by anybody?
Sure.
And so the committee would have to define, like you have to start laying it out like they do tiebreaker rules, where it's like, all right, well, best wins mean more than quality wins, which means more than bad losses, which mean more than good losses or whatever it might be. So until there's that like data-driven criteria, right, where we leave this to computers, it's going to be this shit show, resume versus resume, with two teams that have not played each other, with teams that even you can't even transitive property them because they're so different at different times of the year. And I don't know what the solution is. It's for me, like I'll carry water for the SEC here, and do the Vegas favorability on a neutral field thing. The 12 best teams, stars, right? Jimmys and Joes versus X's and O's. Neutral field favorability. Bama, SMU line them up. Bama's what, a 7.5, 9.5 point favorite
right now?
Right now.
Yeah.
And so to me, 12 best teams is power rankings. Vegas favorability. Vegas built a city on not being wrong. And You line them up and play ball. Totally understand how that's completely impractical, right? Can't have that. Because then you don't get SMU, you don't get Boise State, you don't get these teams that play the games they schedule, win pretty much all of them, and deserve an opportunity to prove to the world that they're better than that schedule suggests, right?
Sure.
So the only solution now is, for me, you have to open the field up more, turn it somewhat data driven, where you have your conference champions, you have a certain number of each conference getting in. Like, you'll see the system I built here where it's basically 24 teams get in, and it's just geographically distributed, and that's how you do it. And there's no perfect system now. Everybody's right, everybody's wrong. Obviously, the solution for Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina is don't fucking lose to middling or below tier conference teams. The argument to that is, well, if Kentucky plays in the Big 12, they're probably 8-4 or 7-5. So is it as horrible of a loss when you see, Indiana's conference schedule and Ohio State's conference schedule, right? Like, when you win your big games, don't lose your mid-tier ones, even though those mid-tier ones are big games to somebody else. I get it. Understood. But the systems, it can't continue as is, because you're not putting the best teams in. If you're going to line them up, who's going to win on Saturday? More often than not, I understand Ole Miss is not going to beat Arizona State 9 times out of 10. But more often than not, that's how you get it. If you want the best teams, the most physical, the NFL has told us so. The Vegas has told us so. Power rankings exist for a reason. If you want the best matchups between the best teams, you have to change the system. And they will, because Greg Sankey's not going to let this fly.
What do you think about like what happened last year and what it is not a fair comparison, but like with Florida State, when you lose your starting quarterback, and then your backup has a game and he doesn't move the ball.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, fuck.
Horrible.
What do you versus Georgia? Like they've lost Carson Beck. He's not going to play. Their backup proved competent. He played like a backup, did enough. Not saying that should keep Georgia out, but like, for example, like Georgia, if he came in and was terrible, like bad.
If this is last year and it's 4 teams, he came in and it's terrible and Texas wins the game,
yeah,
they're done. See ya. They're 5 or 6.
Even though it's Georgia.
Yeah. Even though it's Georgia.
Yeah.
And I think, Notre Dame gets that last spot.
Yeah.
Like that's an area where I think precedent would have to take hold.
See, I was very pro Florida State last year.
I was too.
I was like, dude, get them in. Like, this shit happens, and they've earned the right. They've done enough, and I don't know.
And won their conference championship.
It wasn't
even with the backup.
Exactly. It wasn't like an opinion I was like super confident in, but I was just like, my gut was telling me, like, again, this is college football. It's a game. But my gut was saying, like, dude, let them in. Fuck it. Like, let them go show. Let this backup maybe have a game, or maybe their defense steps up. I don't know. You're thinking a lot of hypotheticals in your head, but I had that thought when it looked like, oh, dude, he's done. And then they bring him back in there, and of course, Carson Beck, that is, of course,
to hand the ball off with a Raggedy Andy arm.
I thought he might be like kind of like playing a little hooky there. I thought that he might be.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No doubt.
I was like, dude, is he about to like jump past this? Are we about to get a little play action? No, we didn't. Texas didn't stack the box.
I'm very concerned for Carson Beck if it's the shoulder. They're saying UCL.
Where's the UCL?
UCL is elbow. That's
Elbow?
right. That's right in here, folks.
Is that tennis elbow?
That's the baseball. It's Tommy John area right there.
Okay.
Shoulder, labrum, rotator cuff, etc. When you're throwing a football and you're up here, that ain't where you want to have an issue.
Yeah.
Especially trying to stretch the field on somebody. You can hand the ball off all day if it's not a complete tear, but
what happened?
It sounded like Mario Kart was about to start a race.
I don't know. I have no notifications.
But based on the video, it looks as somebody's torn their shoulder up. It looks more like a shoulder. Like I understand his elbow goes like this, but I don't know. To me, it looks like a shoulder. They're saying UCL. I don't want to speculate here, but if he's out, it's the Gunnar Stockton show.
Yeah. Gunnar Duval Stockton.
Is he a Duval County kid?
He's a Georgia kid, I believe. I believe he was his high school tape. I think this was like the high school quarterback in Georgia.
Okay. Not a bad place to be. He certainly he was well liked enough that Brock Vandegrift said see you later. Didn't want to wait for Carson Beck to be done. I don't know if Vandegrift has any eligibility left. But
Gunnar Stockton is a fucking name.
it's a good name. It's strong.
It's quite strong.
It's strong. Did you think of anything different of Penn State after Saturday, or Oregon for that matter?
I just think. Let me make sure this take. I haven't really thought it through. Oregon's going to have the best quarterback going forward, and I'm trying to think.
Ooh,
who else? Who am I up against here?
you're up against Quinn Ewers.
Give me Dylan Gabriel.
You're up against Gunnar Stockton.
Not talking about the next level or anything. I'm talking about the best
today.
college quarterback today.
Sure. Gunnar Stockton.
Gunnar Stockton. Yeah, I feel confident in this.
SMU kid. What's his name?
Jennings. Not
Who's
yet.
a
Jennings
dog.
will be better.
Okay. You have
That's a hot take, by the way.
Nico.
I think across the board, I think the stat that I told you this morning that I heard coming in was like his touchdown to interception and against ranked teams 22-3.
Mm-hmm.
20. I mean, he shows up and I think they can just outscore everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe one of those. And yeah, I feel pretty confident in Oregon.
And then Will Howard would be the only other one that I mean, Drew Aller is probably a good NFL prospect, but they don't have anybody to catch the ball over there.
Yeah,
Outside the tight end who's a dog.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that. But I don't know. What was your actual question?
Did Penn State or Oregon do anything that changes your perception of them?
No.
I don't think Penn State's going to be very good. If SMU beats Penn State, I won't be surprised.
I think SMU can play with them. I think people are going to see. A lot of people did not watch SMU Clemson. They just saw the blowout early, and they're like, "Oh, well, Clemson let their foot off the gas." It wasn't like that. KJ, I'm not going to go back over. Outlined it. It was a lot of self-inflicted stuff, and SMU's better than that. And I think SMU's better than Clemson. Yeah, so I think SMU can beat Penn State. And that game was not a good weather game either.
Mm-hmm.
And now they got that one cool weather game out of the way, wet, whatever. They got to go to Happy Valley. I think SMU can do it. But yeah, no, I feel pretty confident. I felt confident in Oregon the entire season. It's just we don't talk about them enough because yeah, we kind of are in our little SEC Big 12 Texas bubble.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I think Dylan Gabriel's weirdly underrated this season. So there you go.
He is suffering from the age-old West Coast TV situation. Even though I feel like Oregon's, because they're in the Big Ten, they played more back this way. But they only have one or two big games a year. The Ohio State game obviously was huge, and BYU was, I think, on at fucking midnight. So the Michigan game would have been big, but they're not Michigan of this year, and Washington's on the West Coast. So you don't see, like, he's kind of just an auto Heisman pick with Hunter and Genty. And I watched very little Dylan Gabriel, so I'm not ready to make much of an opinion on Oregon, other than I think they're a good team, obviously.
What about Belichick doing these interviews in fucking UNC?
What that sounds like is a favor, Dave.
100%.
And by that, I mean he's propping up that job to make it look very desirable for an old pal, perhaps, in the UNC.
Yeah, I'd love to know who that person is because dude, the last thing this dude wants is to go fuck around in the NIL era of college football.
he would despise it. Can you imagine a freshman who signs out of high school, does not play one down, and walks into Bill Belichick's office asking for $500,000 to stay at UNC next year?
It's crazy.
Can you imagine? He would say, no, fuck off. The kid would leave, and he would end up hemorrhaging talent because he's like, these kids haven't done anything to deserve it, which is just now the generation of kids coming into college.
It's the tipping culture, man.
Yes, it is, Randy. That's well said.
It is. But Bill Belichick would despise the culture here unless he was truly a figurehead and had a guy for everything. And it was like his one thing was he would go into a couple top 5 recruits' houses every year and be like, oh, hey, I'm Bill Belichick. That's it.
Yeah. I'm wondering. I don't know. It's the weirdest story. Sorry. I'm looking to make sure because news tends to break like right after we stop recording. But that would be fucking absolute insanity. Anything else? Anything else college football wise? We only did 61 minutes. On it.
I'll just make I don't want to make my case for Ole Miss here. I told you guys I was at some point I was going to get to it. So I'll just say this. Ole Miss showed that their best offense and their best defense can play with anybody in the country. Their best defensive game was Georgia. Their best offensive game was Arkansas. Arkansas, not a great team this year, but no pushover. On the road in Fayetteville. They are one of the 12 best teams in the country this year. They're not going to play for it all because of self-inflicted wounds. Understood. That system will change because people are going to get tired of the 12, quote, most deserving teams, excluding teams that are better on the field than them. The SEC made its bed. It's going to cannibalize itself because they're all good teams. They all have NFL talent. Big Ten to a degree. But the imbalanced conferences where Boise State goes 12-0 or 11-1 every year is not going to fly for a long time. That's all I'll say.
I would simply win more games. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what everybody loves to say.
That's
Go beat
fair.
Florida at Florida. Understood. Got it. Win at Kentucky. Beat Kentucky at home. Totally get it.
So what's next for Ole Miss? Where are we going? What's our bowl?
Well, we're going to the Tax Slayer Bowl, David.
Fuck who? Who we got?
Duke.
Okay, this is a game. This is kind of granted, we're gonna have some opt outs.
That's the thing. It's let's see where the opt-outs are before I have anything to say about this game.
So you're gonna have like a potential like full Duke team against like a shell of itself at Ole Miss team.
Yeah.
Ole Miss gets run and be like, look, told you.
Right, exactly. Ole Miss loses 35-21. Jackson Dart doesn't play, and everybody's like, oh, see, told you. Like, look at this. And it's like, yeah, okay, got it.
Oh, Jackson Dart didn't play. You got a 4-star backup. Why wasn't he better? Why you couldn't beat Duke?
Couldn't beat Duke?
No, man.
Come on, man. Yeah.
That's the thing that sucks about opt-outs is because you could
Right.
settle some of this debate.
Yes. And you could incentivize it so you either pay kids or whatever you do to make this mean something. You should, because one, you get more eyeballs on it, and you'll see that people aren't watching as intently because there's shinier objects in the playoff to watch, and the bowl games just don't mean as much.
Baylor LSU is going to be a banger.
They're fun.
That's going to be a fun
should
game.
Fun. And Ole Miss Duke should be a fun game. They 1-2 in tackles for loss this year. Ole Miss 1, Duke 2.
There you go.
Defensive line standouts who are not going to play.
Yeah.
Even though some Ole Miss guys are going to play because their NIL packages are tied to the bowl game.
Yeah.
So they get a significant check if they do play. But there are some guys where that check won't mean much in the grand scheme of things because they're going to play in the NFL very soon.
You know what means a lot to me?
What?
Real money sports action.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we got our friends at Prize Picks with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Make your holidays bigger and brighter. The best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks also now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join us now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, please. And they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas. Merry Pixmas to you, Randy, if you celebrate. Do you celebrate?
I do celebrate. And guess what? Merry Pixmas to you as well.
Crushed it. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code DIP to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code DIP, D-I-P, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Got a big one tonight. Got Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb.
I know.
Could get a little weird. I don't know. Yeah, I went last night.
Fantasy implications abound here for your boy, Dave.
Same.
Big night.
Same. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Can I clarify 2 things?
Please.
I need Randy, this is clarification station. 1.
If you're talking about the running back, Brett, you don't get to edit the running back.
I'm not. I'm certain.
Okay. So I make sure.
1, there's a lot of discourse these days on the TL about people dunking on SEC, specifically perhaps ADs, teams, etc. They're like, well, we're just never going to schedule any hard teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're missing that point entirely by being so fucking dumb and surface level. Like, obviously, it's not about this year. It's like, oh, you just played Mercer. No shit. Moving forward, they're going to have 0 risk in the non-con, right? Alabama went to Wisconsin this year. That is now an unnecessary risk moving forward. Not this year, not last year, not 3 years ago. Moving forward, they will not schedule a soul outside of the conference, which is already at 8 games or 8 conference games, and that's going to be their gauntlet. It's going to be directional state and Sisters of the Poor otherwise.
Oh, he did the Sisters of the Poor.
2,
Come on.
when I say best teams, I don't mean biggest brands. I don't mean biggest Twitter followings. I don't mean who has the most championships. I don't mean who is the all-time winningest so-and-so. I mean data-driven approach like SP Plus and true data to who are the best teams. For example, you look at Bill Connolly's SP Plus, it's Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Penn State, Indiana, Miami, SMU, South Carolina, A&M, Iowa, LSU, Clemson. All good teams, some good stories even in there, and it's not just the biggest blue blood brands in football.
Okay.
So that was my clarification station.
Any portal jumping we need to check out?
The portal is jumping, Dave. First day of the portal, and I think it's like 600 people have jumped in already. Whereas 1 year ago, I think 500 something people jumped in on the first day alone. So we're already ahead of last year's pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to get, I don't know, worse is not the way to put it, but it's only going to get more used.
Yeah.
Because either you want to get more money to come back to your school, or you want to get more money somewhere else, or you literally have nothing holding you to your playing time situation at your school. I think we'll see a lot of kids dropping down because these schools now have some NIL like momentum, not like dropping way down. I'm not talking divisions, but I'm talking like maybe going to UCF versus backing up at Oklahoma.
Scott Frost.
It's fighting Scott Frost.
Is that a done deal?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Maybe instead of being third string at Penn State, you're going to go start at I don't know, Boise State or
Texas
Virginia
State.
Tech or T-State.
You can make us the punching bag.
These teams who have had
Back-to-back
a
bowls.
couple years of milking donors, changing funds from going to an athletic fund or an athletic foundation into straight up NIL collectives and that kind of thing. So you're going to see these players or teams able to pony up maybe once or twice versus an Ohio State that can pony up 19 times. But if a kid's a backup somewhere, he's a 4-star prospect out of high school, and he needs to play, he's going to be on the move. And
Well
you'll
said.
see it. And you'll probably see a lot of people, getting in the portal and going back to their school that they just portaled from.
What'd you have for lunch?
I had a thundercloud,
Nice.
Italian sub.
KJ Jefferson back in the portal.
Is he?
Yeah.
He's got to go sell insurance or cars or something at this point.
Or just come back to San Marcos. Let's fucking run this back, dude. Let's run it back.
Let's run it back.
Oh, you want me to do run it back?
Oh yeah, that's good. That was good. Yeah, run it back.
You don't have anything else? Okay, I can run it back for you.
No,
guys.
Randy, do you have any more questions? I'm on like I'm on a tirade here.
What do you think about the Bears ending to that Thanksgiving game? They didn't talk about it last week.
Shut
The Bears
up.
stink, and I'm glad Eberflus is now jobless.
Can I say that the Bills, while a disappointing loss, flying across the country, playing a good Rams offense that's getting everybody healthy again
Mm-hmm.
on turf and all that indoors, it's not a bad loss.
The only thing, Dave, I don't disagree with you. The only thing I was disappointed in is the run defense.
Got gashed.
Dashed. And I texted this in the group yesterday. I can see Kansas City running it down their throat for 4 yards of play, picking up dumb first downs in the middle of January, and I can see it happening, and I can see I could fucking see the 24-20 loss because they couldn't stop the run. I can see it. And they have Milano back. They have Bernard's playing well. They have fucking DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp playing safety for him, and I just am very nervous about the run defense. They need a Haloti Nada type to just take up 2 guys.
Chiefs did it again.
They always do, man. They're inevitable. They're inevitable. What do you want me to say? They doinked one in. I mean, it's not even fair anymore.
I was thinking like they're due to have this dude just fucking miss. And it's so perfect that he doinked it in.
Doinked it
It's
in.
so perfect.
Doinked it.
Their offense is hard to watch.
Everything's hard to watch.
It's insane.
Mahomes is hard to watch. Like if you just break it down, yeah, he makes miracle fucking plays because he can't. The initial play is not there because they're not good.
If that's Quinn Ewers behind that line, they're not scoring a point.
They're 2-10.
It's insane.
That's crazy.
Dude, with the fantasy implications, I'm like, well, I'm dialed into this game no matter what, and it's crazy that their offense has just lost the fun factor. It's crazy.
It's only fun because it's like watching a train wreck where somehow like everybody escapes.
Yeah.
It's like watching it's watching Mission Impossible is what the Chiefs offense is.
They can't
it's
get
entertaining because they end up beating the bad guy in the end. Where you're like, how the fuck did that happen?
They can't get Xavier Worthy the ball in space. It's insane. He's such a fucking weapon.
Right. He's the fastest motherfucker in the world. And do you see Eric Bieniemy, Chief Great,
What'd he say?
fired wherever he's coaching now?
Oh, really?
So maybe it's not. Maybe it wasn't him, kind of thing. Maybe it was just Mahomes and Reed and they're studs. Sammy Watkins of old.
Damn.
What's your Christmas light setup, Dave?
All white.
All white.
Outside? All white.
Okay.
I got to take a picture of my neighbors and send it to you. You'd hate it.
Oh yeah.
We got three different. We got all white. We've got blue.
Oh.
And we got like just the colored ones. We got a trifecta. This my man.
Too much.
My man
going on?
he hasn't done them in a while, and he's just like, I'm gonna throw these up. These are what I got. It's tough.
Did he do them himself?
Yeah.
So I think that already just puts it above yours. So
Well, I appreciate his effort.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll Griswold here and there, but if you want to keep it all white inside or outside, I'm cool with it. If you want to go, Randy, you're a colored light guy. I'm well aware. If you want to go there, just keep the theme. Keep it to one side of the coin. You can go white outside, you can go white inside. Just keep it to one.
Nope, you can mix them. Have fun. It's Christmas. Do whatever you want. Don't be corporate America, Macy's Christmas tree like Brett.
Wow.
Macy's Christmas tree.
Run it back, Randall.
All right. This is a segment where we talk about the things that we talked about earlier in the segment. Short one today. Let's switch over to your guys' camera. How about that? Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go.
Hey.
There they are. All right. Quick one for KJ. We're drinking Zevia Tall Boys. Dave wants to postpone the show so he can read up on Luigi. Brett lived in Arizona for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was a scata blowout. KJ made a Girls Gone Wild reference. Texas did the Saratoga Spring special through the Arch package.
Sure did.
KJ was inches away from his TV during the ACC championship game. If SMU lost 50-0, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. Brett hates the college playoff picking process and wants a computer to decide, like Spike TV's Deadliest Warrior.
Not exactly, but I like where your head's
It's
at.
pretty much the same thing that you were saying.
Okay.
You don't want a shoulder injury if you're a quarterback. iPad tipping culture will cause redshirt freshmen not to play for Bill Belichick. Brett thinks Ole Miss should be in the playoffs, but isn't because the SEC is too good. Unlike the SEC, bowl games do not mean much. Merry Pickmas to all, and Brett had a Thundercloud sub for lunch.
Italian.
Kept it short for you.
Ooh, tough timing on that one.
I feel good.
We got to get KJ Jefferson and Sam Marcus. It just makes too much sense. This he's battle tested.
What's he got? One more year? Where's Cam? Cam Rising's not going back to Utah. Maybe we just switch those two out.
Ooh, that's a
KJ to Utah.
Yeah.
KJ back to Arkansas, perhaps.
I don't hate it. Bringing Sam Pittman back for another year. May as well get the band together.
No, they got their guy.
Yeah.
What's his fucking name?
Talon.
Yeah, Talon Green.
Not great. All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, guys.